Hello and welcome. So in this video I'm going to compare two different trekking pole tents. This is the Lanshan 2 and this is the One Tigris Tangram Ultralight. We'll start with the obvious difference, shall we? Pack size. So the Lanshan 2 packs down to 30 centimeters by 15 centimeters approximately, depending how well you get it back in the bag. And the One Tigris Tangram is, I think it's 45 centimeters by about 18 centimeters. So this packs down a little bit bigger than this one. And also weight. This one weighs 1.4 kilos and this one weighs 1.8 kilos. So again, this one is a bit lighter and a little bit smaller. But let's have a look around them both individually. I can't pitch them together because I've only got two trekking poles. So we'll pitch this and look at it, and we'll pitch this and look at it. Now this is a double skin tent and it's an all-in-one pitch. So this material is 15D nylon, the hydrostatic head is 5,000 millimeters. The ground sheet of it is 20D nylon and 8,000 hydrostatic rating. So when fully pitched it is 210 centimeters long and 110 centimeters wide. They build this as a two-man tent. I'm not so sure that it's a two-man tent. I think it's a large one-man or maybe a tent that would suit a couple. But it depends how close you are with the person you're camping. You got nice protection from the rain here with the Velcro tabs on the zippers both sides. You've got airflow both sides and you've got airflow underneath both sides. You've got these small aluminium pegs come with it. So as you can see inside, you've got lots of headroom. You know, I can sit right upright, my head doesn't go anywhere near the ceiling. And if you was a taller person, you know, you can make your poles that little bit bigger and you know, give yourself a little bit more room. You've got gear storage down the end, large vestibule both sides, and plenty of storage. We've got hooks for hanging lanterns. So these Lanshan 2s, you know, they've got a good reputation, they're very popular. I would have some concerns though, in any kind of rough weather, you know, in high winds or even moderate winds, I would be concerned about that pole just tipping over. As a two-person tent, it's probably a bit cramped really, but as a lightweight option, if you adjust, putting it up and going to sleep, you could just about squeeze two people in there. The interesting thing about it is that the doors are on opposite sides. So this door is on this half of the tent That door through there is on the opposite half of the tent. So if you and a mate, for example, were camping, you would top and tail in there. You've got your own door here at your head, they've got their own door the other side at their head. And I think it would work really well. But personally speaking, I wouldn't want to share this tent with anyone other than my wife, I'd say. I would consider this to be a palatial one-man abode, and I'd sleep starfish. The things I see wrong with this tent. Yes, it's lightweight, but I think with the lightweight comes a certain element of fragility. As I've mentioned previously, you know, high winds, I would sleep with one eye open, I would be a little bit worried. And another thing, I think, you know, there's a vestibule both sides, but look how high that is off the ground. It's halfway up my forearm. That's a long way up, and it is a bit flappy. So yes, you could put your boots and your bag out here, but any kind of strong wind, any kind of driving rain, it's got to get under there surely. So I think there would be a risk that your gear out here could potentially get wet. You've got plenty of ventilation though, because there's so much room here. So wind is going to get under there, wind is going to get up in these little windows up here. But just look how much room there is. You know, on the positive side of it, there's so much room in here for one. Laying down, if I put my feet right to the end, now I'm 5'8", and there's almost another foot ahead of above my head there. So in my overall verdict, I think this is a great couples tent or a great one-man tent, but I wouldn't be comfortable using it as a two-man. And while it's very light, reasonably easy to pitch, I would have my concerns in any kind of bad weather. But overall, it's a decent tent. It really is. This is the Tangram Ultralight by One Tigris. What this tent gives you is support, and there are there are 6 guy lines that come out that hold it rigidly in place, and this is, you know, I'm really pleased with how this has gone up. It feels so solid. Now this can be pitched at 120 to 130 centimeters high, depending on how tall you want it. You can adjust your trekking poles accordingly. It's an outer pitch first, so it comes separate. You pitch this outer bit and then you clip in the inner afterwards, so that's always good for pitching in bad weather. You know, if you're in a bug free zone, you needn't take the inner part, you could just pitch the outer and have it just as a shelter, like a kind of a tarp tent. So that's quite cool. Material wise, this is a 75D ripstop nylon with a waterproof rating of 1,500 millimeters. We got YKK zippers. We've got the storm flap. And you've obviously got a vestibule both sides. You've got doors both sides, and these ones open all the way. You can open it there, and you can open it across there. So you can open this right up. In fact, let's do that. So you can take these doors right back to there, and you can do this on both sides, so you can have complete airflow going through. Trekking pole is in the middle, but that is the nature of a trekking pole tent. But just look at the room in here. How high is this? I've got my pole set to I think 120, so that's sort of the lowest setting, and you know, loads of room. I can jump up and down. And the height of these vestibule areas, you know, it's a hand size, and that's quite tight. So I think I've got more confidence in these, that you better keep your gear under here nice and dry. And the inner is attached by these clips here, and it just unhooks nice and simple. And then you've got a tightening piece here, so you can slacken this off when you put it away and just tighten it up when you pitch it. And the four corners have got the same tightening system. You know, when you unpeg this, you unpeg it, loosen that right off, and then when you peg it out, you can then yank on that and really get it nice and taut. The vestibule, both sides, you know, is big enough to get a whole backpack in. You get a backpack there, you get your cook kit there. So when you pitched here, this is 220 centimeters in length. So I've got my feet, hang on, I've got my feet down the end and my hands stretched out. So that's a lot of room, and it's 120 centimeters across. So again, this is billed as a two-person tent. And could you get two people in here? Yes, I think you could. I think it would be tight, but you've got a vestibule each, you've got a door each. So again, in my opinion, this is a very spacious one-man tent, or it's a two-person tent for a couple or two people that are very close. It just feels solid. It feels really solid. I mean, with all these trekking pole tents, you know, my biggest fear is that the poles are just going to fall over in the night. But each of these poles has 3 points of contact with the ground, and I think that is great. You know, you've got 3 to the right, 3 to the left, and they're pulling it apart. So the only way, in my mind, the only way it can fall down is if your poles aren't good enough. So if your poles give out in the night, then you're in trouble. But that is the nature of a trekking pole tent, really. The base of this, again, I think this is the 75D nylon, but it feels pretty robust. You know, it doesn't feel flimsy. You got the bug mesh part in here. You know, the mesh is quite nice. It's black. You got some hooks up in the corner where I think you could run a gear line across and have hanging space up above you. And they've reinforced the corners in here. I think it's just well made. So that's the Tangram pitched, and out of the two, I think this one edges it, and it edges it by a considerable distance. The Lanshan is lighter, smaller, but I think it's flimsier. It's not as waterproof, and I think you're always going to be at risk of it falling down on you, or the pegs coming out the ground. The pegs on the Lanshan are tiny. On this, they're more substantial, and I say having the 3 anchor points both sides is great, because on the Lanshan you've got one each side, and pegs come out, don't they? You know, they come out the ground if it rains hard, if the ground was wet, or you haven't quite got them in right, they do come out, and you don't want that happening in the middle of the night. At least with this, you've got 3 chances of it staying up, which I think is a massive advantage. I think this is easier to pitch, to be quite frank. The Lanshan is easy, but it is a bit fiddly. And when I've pitched my Lanshan, at times it's been flappy, it's been a bit weird. Whereas this, I've pitched it twice now since I've had it, and it's been tight, it's been good every time, and it's been easy to pitch. It feels solid, it feels well made, and do you know what else? It's cheaper. I bought my Lanshan for £168. This is £115. You know, it's 50 odd quid cheaper. I think it's better made. So I would go for this one over the Lanshan any day of the week. And yes, this one's bigger. And as far as carrying this goes, I mean, in this packaging, you've got the outer and you've got the inner, and the pegs, obviously. But I would be inclined to take the inner out of this bag and put it in a separate dry bag, so that if you're in bad weather, when you take your tent down, you take the inner out first and pack that away. So you can do that inside your tent. You could stick it in a dry bag, wrap it up, tuck it in your bag, and then that's always going to stay dry before you even have to take the outer down. So I think that would be my method of carrying it. So that is the outer, which is not huge, is it? And that is the inner section. And as I say, my thought would be to separate them. Keep the inner in something like that, in your bag, nice and dry, protected. Then you won't have a wet tent, no matter the weather. You know, for convenience, the lightweightness of it, you know, the size of it, getting it in your bag, the ease of putting it up, you know, this is fine. There's nothing wrong with this at all, other than, you know, it does seem a bit flimsy. Whereas this one, it's that little bit heavier. It feels quite heavy, but you can take the inner out, put it in a separate dry bag, and it's this big. And you stuff it in a pocket of your bag, you roll up the outer, and the outer's this big. You know, that would fit in the lid of your bag, you know what I mean? It's because you can break it into two, it makes it much more packable. So you're carrying an extra 400 grams, but I think that peace of mind overnight that it would give you, I think it wins the day for me. So I would go Tangram over Lanshan every day of the week. So that's it. Thank you very much for watching. If you like the content, please give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you soon. Thanks again.